Hello and good morning. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, June 17th. Somehow, me and Stevie have been left in charge of all matters Rangers Review this week. We are the only two that did not get international call up. So while Derek is swanning around various parts of Germany wearing retro Scotland tops, and Josh and Johnny are enjoying German sausage for breakfast, me and Stevie are back at base and doing the hard graft to bring you all your latest Rangers review news. Stevie, how are we?
Joshua enjoying is probably a little bit of a take, isn't it? Because let's be honest, he looks like he's a prisoner. So, in all these photos that Johnny's been posting. But apart from that, you're absolutely spot on. We are good. Hopefully, we're live. Hopefully, people are actually watching this. And you never know with us too. But yep, we're good to go. There's actually some stuff to talk about as well. So, should be fun.
Rangers have done us an absolute turn. If it had been a very quiet weekend, we would just have been sitting here talking about the kids and talking about work and how's the family and all that type of thing. So no, we have Rangers news to talk about. Before we get into that, I have to do a bit of housekeeping and of course give a shout out to our podcast sponsors, the MPH Group. They had their latest launch over the weekend. Someone will be heading to Vegas. It's not me, unfortunately. Johnny has still to sign off that particular trip. I think if we make a good job of this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Steve, I think that's what we can ask for. If all expenses paid, no expense spared. I think if we can keep this on air for the next 3 days, I think that's more than merited.
I think we'll most likely be getting sent to Blackpool at our most known Johnny, but. Yeah, a sterling job so far, and you've even done the sponsors bit. So,
I have done my bit. Right, let's get into some proper Rangers news. Another day, another Rangers link. Hamza Igamani, that's the latest name to be put forward as a potential summer recruit for Rangers. He could be the first striker to be signed this summer. Stevie, the news came out late yesterday evening. What have you managed to find out about him? What do you know about him? And do you fancy this boy coming in to potentially score the goals to win and Rangers the championship next season?
So what do we know about him? He is 21. He's 5'11", rising star basically in Morocco. He scored quite a lot of goals for under 23s for Morocco. He can play as a centre forward. He can also moonlight out on either side in a 3, but he's predominantly a centre forward. 20 appearances, 16 starts, 7 goals, 3 assists. Attacking and technical attributes are not bad. Goal conversion 12%, which means that's not great, so he'll fit in perfectly. Passing accuracy 71%, long ball accuracy 35%, a goal every 203 minutes, average 2.9 shots per game, 64 successful dribbles, 38% duels won, 43 aerial duels won, right and left-footed, right preferred. 6 appearances for the under-23s for Morocco and 2 goals, Chris. There is your statistical rundown. You're going to ask me if I'd done that. Of course I didn't, thanks to Shona as ever for getting me those stats. But what have I seen of him? Probably the same as everybody else. When you get linked with somebody like this, you go on YouTube, don't you, and look at the compilation of goals and see what he's like. And you know what? I watched it, and my heart was telling me, here's Alfredo all over again, because that's what it reminded me of, that raw kind of talent up front. The knee slide when he scored a goal had me getting all teary-eyed and, remembering the good old times. So I like the look of him. He scored a few decent goals, Chris. It looks like he can take a touch and get a shot away. And this is where it's going to be interesting, because we've spoke about this a lot, haven't we, on having like a proper number 9, and then the guy behind them should be somebody that's, exciting, young, and able to push that first team player. Maybe not ready, but somebody that's, somebody that wants to kind of kick on, somebody that wants to push and stuff. And I think this boy could be it. He'll be a bit raw. He looks a bit raw. It's just basically Alfredo. Like, it's the whole Alfredo again coming in the exact same as that. Going to try and find out. That'll be our job for today, I'm sure, how good this link actually is and how true it is. But you often find that when you get something out of the blue like that in another country press and stuff like that, it's normally quite close to being the truth. So it's going to be an interesting one. somebody we don't know a lot about, is it? Let's be honest, we don't know a lot about this boy, but could be an exciting one. He looks okay. I was impressed. He scored a header, a downward header that hit the bar in the way in, which I quite liked. He had one that he kind of flicked through his legs and then rattled in, which I liked as well. So, yeah, I mean, he's a striker, isn't it? We all want strikers. So it's going to be interesting. If he comes in, then you've got Danilo. Do you get another one? Is Albion Rahmani? Would that one still go on? I think it probably would. I don't think that would jeopardise this. So it's an interesting one, Chris. I quite like it. I'm cautiously optimistic about the link to that one.
Shona is already pouring cold water on your stats this morning. Bring back Josh Barry. I hear is the call. But as you mentioned there, Steve, it is the first striker link. There's not really been a lot. Now we see comments on the show every morning. People mentioning Shankland, which I don't think is going to happen. A lot of chat about Miovski, but this almost seems like trying to unearth the next one. We know what someone like Miovski can do. We know what price tag that is then unfortunately going to come with. It's not really the market that Rangers are going to be looking in, especially when they have to do so much business. If they only needed 2 or 3 signings, you can say, well, we'll go and spend 6, 7, 8 million pounds on a striker because he's the final piece of the jigsaw. Rangers need a lot of pieces this summer, so you can't expect to have everyone as a marquee signing. When you're in this value of player, they're going to be a risk. Are they going to be hopeless? Are they going to be, as you say, Daniel Alfredo Morelos? That's the risk. But I think there's enough about this one. It looks an interesting profile. As you say, he celebrates with a knee slide, so he's already got half a Ibrox on board. If he points to the ground while he does it, I mean, the boy's just destined to be a star. But he is the first striker link, the first proper striker link outside of Rahmani. How many number 9s, how many guys in that area of the pitch do you expect Rangers to try and bring in this summer?
2. So I'm definitely there with 2. So I think Danilo's fine. I think his position in the squad is absolutely fine, and I think he's got something to offer us. Whether or not he is the answer, I'm not sure. But I've seen enough of him to like him and to think that, and I know he missed a few chances. So I'm taking his position in the squad as being fine. I think there could be interest in Dessers, but I'm not entirely convinced that he'll go either. I think he might be quite comfortable and happy here. So that's a kind of conundrum. And then that's really it, isn't it? It's the 2 of them, and then you've got nobody else. But I think you're looking at this young boy coming in as being somebody that they'll look to progress within time and maybe push. Would he go 2 up front? Would he, these are the type of questions we need to ask. But I still think there'll be a number 9 starting coming in, Chris. I do think there's something about this Rahmani deal, whether or not we get that over the line. Just talking about Shankland, I think that if we were going to get Lawrence Shankland, that would have happened by now. I don't think there's too much difference in valuation between now and January, and depending on what Hearts have. If you put away all the side of the cries of 4 or 5 million in that, I think 1.5 would have done it in January, and it will certainly do it in the summer. And I don't think we're interested. I think that's exactly where we are. As for Bojan Miovski, he's a really good player, isn't he? Strong, powerful, quick, can finish, as we've seen to our own cost. But I think that dealing with Aberdeen is a near impossibility for Rangers. So I don't see them as being viable. And I think that what we've got to do is exactly what you said. You've got to unearth that next one, haven't you? You've got to find the guy. See, Rangers don't need to sign players that are automatically going to be sold for 10 million in 2-3 years. It's not that kind of market. What we need to do is develop guys that actually you can bring in for 2 and you can sell for 4. It's those type of deals that we need to do. And, these are the ones that we need to get more of. The middle kind of ground in transfers. Yes, you're going to love the Big Bassey and Nathan Patterson sales, aren't you? And we all want that. But that might be 1 every 3 years if you get it right, every 4 years, whatever. It's the little middle of the road guys, the guys like this that you sign, comes in, does well enough. You know what I mean? Does okay, does well enough, plays his part in winning some stuff. Maybe not first choice, but really good backup player type, and then you punt him on for 4 or 5 million pounds. These are the deals you need to start doing. So I can see why they're targeting it. The profile thing makes perfect sense. So yeah, I mean, I can get on board with this, Chris. I think he looks like, what have we got? We've got 4 or 5 minutes YouTube clips. That's all we've got. So we can't, and you know what I mean? And they're going to show you the best bits. So we can't exactly say that he's wonderful and he's all conquering and things like that. But what we can say is he can certainly finish. He's got a couple of left-footed volleys. He's got a few headers. He's got a couple of the ones where he turns and he hits it first time with his right foot and stuff like that. So I think he's shown us that he's certainly got potential. It's up to us now. We'll need to go and find out how true this is. We'll need to go and do a wee bit of investigating on that. But it's certainly at least it's a link, Chris, because it was a very quiet weekend, wasn't it? And we were like, what's happening next? But I've always said I wouldn't be surprised if in the background Rangers are negotiating 4 or 5 deals and we just don't know. And as you know as well as I do, that when Niels Coppin came in and they changed the kind of structure of the transfers and stuff with Clement and things, it was always going to be more difficult to find out exactly what's going on, because in previous years it has been more open and we are able to kind of break and confirm stuff and things like that. This year it's already been a lot more difficult and a lot more professional from the club, which is a good thing, but not for us perhaps, but it's a good thing from a club point of view. So let's find out what this boy's like, find out how much truth is in it, and then we'll go from there. But the profile, Chris, and the idea of it all makes sense to me.
One of the other names that always comes up when we're talking about centre forward, something that Jamie's mentioned there. I've got a Q&A piece on the site this morning. Some of the review readers and subscribers put in their questions. I've answered a few of them on a range of topics on the site this morning, and 2 or 3 of them focused on the academy and young players coming through. Zach Lovelace, he's always someone who people, I think they hear a lot about him, but perhaps don't actually see enough of him. Is he someone that you think can be that number 3 striker, or is it too big from a fairly stop-start season in terms of injuries last year for him, unfortunately? Is it too much to be expecting him to go in and compete with Dessers, Danilo, and potentially someone that comes in? Is it just too big a gap for him?
Well, first of all, in answer to the question from Jamie, from Zach Lovelace himself, I actually banged into him at the Sponsors Day, Chris, and was speaking to him, asking him how his injury was, and then saying, what are you doing with your contract? And he said, his own words were, I'm not out of contract. I've got another year left, and I'm not sure why. At that point, I think Sky had put it up saying that he was out of contract this summer. He says, I don't know why. He did admit there was some interest from down south, but he was happy where he was. So that hopefully answers that question from the boy himself. Secondly, do I think he's good enough to push on? I don't know. I mean, that St Mirren game where he got injured, he looked all right, didn't he? But we were at a point where, coming off the back of that game in Cyprus, where anybody would have looked all right. I think if you'd stuck me up top, there would have been a suggestion that even I might have looked decent compared to what we had just witnessed, Chris. So, not to downplay the lad, I think he's got good ability. I think he can potentially force his way into the squad, but I think it is a lot to ask. And you've seen Ross McCausland last year, who I think he came in and did all right. And then there was points where he dipped and the fans were rubbishing him after 2 minutes. So, and then he finished the season kind of strongly. So it's a difficult one. I mean, do I think he can come in and be a starter? No. But does he have a part to play in the squad? Could he kick on? Does he have ability? Yeah, I think he does. But it'll be about him trying to stay fit. I think that's job 1. And then 2, trying to push on and take his opportunities when he does get it. I would like to think that Lovelace is the kind of guy that could get 10, 15 minutes here and there, in game and properly see what he's like. But does he start and things? I'm not sure. We've not seen enough of him. There's apparent potential with regards to Zach Lovelace. But and I think that because we're going to be signing so many players this summer, and I really do think we could be anywhere up to a dozen coming in. We've already got 3. So is that going to make it much more difficult for him? Yeah, I think it probably will be, but I wouldn't rule him out. I think that's the easiest way to answer that one.
Like the other name that's obviously been doing the rounds over the weekend and towards the tail end of last week was Conor Barron at Aberdeen. Was heavily linked also with the club during the January window. I was talking to Derek about this last week. For me, it falls into the no-brainer character. He ticks He ticks a number of boxes. He's perhaps not the most exciting signing. People aren't going to rush out and put Barron on the back of their jerseys, perhaps. But for me, I think it'd be a really shrewd bit of business for Rangers. Now, ticks the obviously homegrown, knows the league, has proven himself in this league. And for me, Rangers have to get better at picking up the best of what's round about. That's not to say that every player from the Premiership is going to come in and automatically win you the league, but you have a flavour of these guys. You have a blend of these guys within the group. And I say for me, he just looks a really obvious bit of business. So keen to see Rangers try and get this one over the line in the face of quite a lot of competition, unfortunately.
Yeah, spoke about this again last week on my own platform on the Four Lads podcast, and also on Rangers Review last week with Derek. I'm agreeing with you. I think it's a no-brainer. Like, I really do. I think that I agree with you. We also have to start picking up the best of Scottish talent. So Derek and I have spoken about this quite a lot since January. And some of the names that I mentioned, Chris, and people will be shaking their head because I've said this a few times in the last week, was Lennon Miller, Watson at Kilmarnock, Connor Barron, and I really like a couple others as well. There's I think 2 or 3 maybe. There's Boy Fodringham, I think it is, at Dundee United, that's worth a watch. And then there's a boy at Hibs, which I really like as well. So Connor Barron, for me, it's an obvious one. What's it going to cost you? £250,000, right? And it's low risk, as Stephen's saying there, completely. And I think it's one of those ones that you're basically taking Ryan Jack out the squad, aren't you? And you're replacing him with a guy 10 years younger. That's almost entirely the exact same profile, exact same type of ball player. He's very strong off the ball. He basically harasses and gets players around him and in their face, and he's a ball winner. You know what I mean? And you need that. And if you put a proper ball winner in next to the likes of Diamandi and Raskin and things like that, how much will it improve them? He's got a good age. He's got a good profile. He's Scottish. Yeah, I mean, no brainer. I think sums it up perfectly. And yes, there is competition, Chris. Like, there's going to be competition for everyone. And I'd be naive enough to think that Rangers are, this unbeatable force that we once were, where, no matter who came in, that Rangers were going to be the driving force and going to be easy to get. But it's certainly an interesting opportunity for him. I'm quite optimistic about this one. I think that's the best way to say it. Like, I'm quite optimistic about Connor Barron and where Rangers are in terms of pecking order and his kind of potential move here. So, yeah, he's one I definitely want. I said it last week, I'll say the same thing again. Connor Barron for me is a definite yes. And he's one that I would be really pleased with if we managed to pick it up. I mean, the manager said himself, we need to be clever, Chris. I think it's a clever signing, isn't it? It makes sense. So,
in terms of that midfield, I think it's an interesting, probably overlooked in some regards. Now, people are looking at centre half, and a lot of talk about also the captain and the vice captain. People love to see number 9s coming in. The midfield does need a bit of work on it, though. You've lost Jack and Lundstrom. Safe to say the futures are uncertain for Kieran Dowell, Tom Lawrence, Todd Cantwell. You could potentially lose all 3 of them, even if you don't replace like for like in terms of all of them. There will need to be other midfield recruits coming in. How do you see that midfield area shaping up? I think I'm sure we both agree Diomande starts every day of the week as long as he's fit. I thought Raskin ended the season on a high note after a really difficult season overall. For me, he's done enough to deserve a place. Probably not as a nailed down starter, but certainly within the squad. Diomande, I think he's a nailed down guy to have in there. How do you see those other midfield berths shaping up? Are the likes of Dowell, Cantwell, Lawrence, do they have a place? Or would you recycle their fees, recycle their wages and try and inject a bit more quality in that area of the pitch?
Spoke about this last week a wee bit. Interesting. I think that Tom Lawrence, for the amount of money he's allegedly on and for his availability and I think his age and profile, I think I would move him on. I think that's fair to say. I think Kieran Dowell could be a nice player, could be okay. How much is he going to actually be available and things like that? He's got a nice left foot and he could maybe do a job, but he's not. He's one of these guys that, the drop off in quality, I think, is quite big. Like Diamandi to Dowell is quite a drop off, I think. So you need to bridge that a wee bit, and I'm not sure that he can. And I'm not sure that this may sound harsh, but I'm not sure you're getting a lot more out of Kieran Dowell or Tom Lawrence. I'm not sure you're getting much. I think that if you've got the opportunity to recycle their wages and put them out the door, I think you would. And I think you would go and maybe strengthen that area after they go, because I think you would need to. Could Cole McKinnon push on and maybe become like the fourth or fifth choice midfielder? I think that's a possibility. As for Todd Cantwell, I really like Todd Cantwell. I've spoken about Todd Cantwell a lot. I really like him, but he does himself absolutely no favours, Chris. I was metaphorically, because not literally, tearing my hair out when it came up to the cup final and he's making those stupid things on Instagram, Schussburgers and all that. See if you're doing it and you're good enough to back it up. Say what you want and do what you want. But there's been zero indication for me that Todd Cantwell has really done it when it properly matters. Now, he's surrounded by a team that's potentially full of guys that aren't good enough, and we've been really outspoken on that. So is it harsh to kind of criticise Todd Cantwell a wee bit? But when's he really actually done it? And that's my question mark over Todd Cantwell. And then you chuck in the fact that I think it's quite obvious that Clement is frustrated by him at times. And I think that's fair. I think some of the reactions to Todd Cantwell is fair. But if you're making statements and you're the arrogant one that wants to be the 10 and you want to be that key player in the team, I don't mind that in the slightest, but you have to back it up, and I don't think he has. My answer to your question, if we could recycle him as well, then yes. I think, I'm sorry if that's harsh. Could he be better with better players around him? He probably could be, right? But there's a sense of, you could possibly say that for a couple of the players in the team. I don't think Todd Cantwell survives this summer, Chris. I really don't. I think that if there's offers in and if there's interest, I think Todd Cantwell will go. And I think that Rangers, I've spoken about this again a lot, and people would have heard me say it. I think there's vital positions in this team. The number 6 position is one, which I think is absolutely key. And that will allow Diamandi, Raskin, Barron, if he comes, Cole McKinnon, maybe. You need a proper number 6, an orchestrator in the whole team. And then it becomes a number 10. The successful seasons we had under Gerrard, 55-year, our number 10 position was Hadji, and it was Arfield, and there was Kent. They played them two, and between them, the goal kind of involvements that year, even Kent pitched in. Kent got 10 or something that year. I mean, he had an anomaly for his stats. But Arfield pitched in, didn't he, with a dozen goal involvements. Hadji pitched in, he had 20 odd, and between them all, he had 40, 50 goal involvements. Todd Cantwell is not getting the numbers anywhere close to that. And then beyond him, there's nobody really beyond him either. So I think you need a 10, Chris, that's going to influence and properly be able to. And I also think as well, slightly harsh possibly, I think that Cantwell has got baggage now as well. There's too much in these like big old firm games and stuff. You can see him getting rattled. And he's even that cup final, it was obvious he was getting rattled by little comments towards him. The 3-3 game, he's getting rattled. And, when he posts stuff on Instagram afterwards saying, wait till next time and all this sort of stuff, it just makes him an easy target. And I think that he's quite easy to be picked off. So I like him. I really want him to succeed, but I don't think he's going to succeed at Rangers. That's sorry, brutal honesty. I think that Cantwell's time at Rangers, if we get a decent offer this summer, will be over.
That number 10 position feeds into a comment I did hear from King Charles Spaniel asking about Yanis Hadji. He is in the Romania squad. They kick off their campaign today against Ukraine. I think it's the 2:00 game on BBC. So hopefully we'll get a chance to tune in and see how Yanis is doing. I spoke to a couple of people out in Spain around about the turn of the year to assess his loan spell at Alaves. Safe to say he was not tearing it up over there. I think he has this, and I know his dad certainly has this idea of him playing in a Big Five league, but when you go to Alaves and you don't make a massive impact, again, he's someone who I don't see having any future at Rangers after the end of the summer. I'm hoping to actually have a piece on that number 10 debate on the site over the course of the next few days, because Rangers are well stocked in that area, but need a huge upgrade. Hagi, Lammers, the two that will definitely move on. You mentioned Cantwell there, potentially moving on. Tom Lawrence, for me, has to move on as well. Dowell can play there. Alec Lowry, it was just a season to forget for him. So I think that's 6 off the top of my head, guys, that can play that number 10 role. None of them nailed down. None of them a fan favourite. None of them a manager favourite by the looks of it. So definitely an area that needs a real upgrade. And unless Ianis Hagi absolutely tears it up in over these next 3 games, I don't see Rangers getting a massive fee for him, which for a guy who at one stage looked really promising, looked like he could go on and be a really accomplished player for Rangers. We all know the knee injury and the long road back from that, but hoping to tune in and watch him later on, because we really need to see something from him, not because it gives him a Rangers future, but it might get Rangers an extra couple £100,000 on top of our fee these next few weeks, hopefully.
I'm going to fling this question back at you, because I know that it's going to be quite a kind of bone of contention, my comments. Where are you on Todd Cantwell? And do you think, here's an interesting thing, do you think Ianis Hagi fit this season would have produced more than Todd Cantwell did in the number 10 position?
In terms of numbers, without sounding like Josh, yes. I think Hagi contributes more in terms of numbers than Cantwell. In terms of the overall side, probably not, because unfortunately Ianis has lost whatever modicum of pace he had before his injury. He just doesn't have that. He's not dynamic enough for me anymore. He's not explosive enough in those key areas. Does he still have technical quality? Undoubtedly. Can he still pick a pass? I believe so. Can he still score goals? I believe so. But I just think that time has moved on. Ianis' Rangers career has moved on, and I have to agree with you on Todd Cantwell as well. I think he is now one that, as you mentioned, baggage there, not as much as some members of the squad, obviously, but I think you look at the Old Firm games in particular. These are, if you're going to paint yourself as a game changer and a match winner, these are the games that really matters, not Dundee at Ibrox. Yes, it's 3 points. Yes, it's important, but the Old Firm games, the cup games, these big European games, that's what you're really looking for your number 10 to really stand up and be counted. And against a point I made a couple of times on the show, we'd really like to see Rangers go and strengthen that area of the pitch over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think it just kind of sums up what I said, wasn't it? It's a difficult one. I think he is likeable, and I think there is a case to suggest that he's not had the best teams around him. I think there's a case to suggest that even last summer, the start of the season, Beale mucked him about positionally and stuff like that. I think that's all fair. But I've not been gripped. Like, there's been wee flashes, 2 or 3 games, you're maybe thinking, great. Then he picks up a knock and he just doesn't recover and find his feet. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, Chris. I think there's going to be big departures in the next few weeks. I don't see Todd Cantwell having a future here, but we'll see how that pans out.
Just finally, Stevie, you mentioned international comings and goings at the start of the show. Have you enjoyed the Euros so far? Have you tuned in, and what was your hot take on events on Friday evening?
Well, from a Scotland viewpoint, I thought it was a disastrous performance. Did I really expect them to beat Germany? No, I tipped Germany on Friday morning to be a comfortable but competitive kind of Scotland performance. Thought Germany would maybe win 2-0. But the way we were set up, Chris, was quite frankly Michael Beale levels of atrociousness. And no disrespect, like, I'm not having a pop at Michael Beale when I say that, but a lot was said about Michael Beale's tactics. And I mean, Scotland were completely wide open. His selection was all wrong. I'm inherently biased, but to leave out Billy was an atrocious decision. I can understand why. I know people have commented. I understand why he went with that kind of defence, but Ryan Porteous, I remember being on this show and we were getting linked with him, and I was massively against it, like to the point where, I was getting stick and people were saying it was an obvious one. I think that Ryan Porteous is capable of doing exactly what he done. He done it to Barisic, Koulibaly, Aribo, time and time again. He lets you down. He just wouldn't be in my team to start with, so there's little bits and pieces there that you would wonder. But then you've got somebody like Grant Hanley coming in who's really, no disrespect, he's not good enough. You just play your best players, and I look at it and think to myself, and is Billy one of your best players? If he's good enough for De Zerbi and Brighton to replace McAllister and Caicedo, should he be good enough to play in the number 6 position for Scotland? That's what he does. He's a conductor. He keeps the ball. And the fact that we let Tony Cruz be completely free, I would have thought the obvious thing to do would be play Billy, play Callum McGregor, which would have helped McGregor 100 times worse. Because I don't care what people say, and maybe not staunch and whatever, but he's a good player. But he can't do it all on his own. So put McTominay, McGregor, Billy in there, and then put McGinn on Tony Cruz and get him to sit right on him so that he at least has somebody challenging him. But if you let a guy like Tony Cruz just have all the time in the world, what's he going to do? And then because it's so narrow, there's so much space, and then nobody's dropping deep to pick up those runs. And it's just within the first 2 minutes, you could see how it was going to go because the boys in the wings were just coming and sitting in that gap, and it was just a mess. And then Shea Adams up front, who I do think is the country's best option up there, just was getting absolutely nothing. Ryan Christie was not in the game. McGinn wasn't in the game. It was just, we're not blessed with massive talent, but use what we have to the best possible ability. Is that fair? I just don't think we maximise what was there. And yes, look, Germany are a top-class side. They'll go deep into this tournament. Absolutely, I get it. And maybe no matter what we'd done would have made much difference. But that was atrocious. No shots on goal. Tactically, just a mess. Selection-wise, a mess. And I just think that a lot was said about Switzerland and Hungary. And I think maybe even optimistically fairly. But when you get a result and a performance like that, it takes a lot to suddenly switch that and then go to Wednesday against Switzerland and it all be absolutely, fantastic again. He's going to need to make big changes. There's potentially 4 or 5 changes in your first 2 games of a massive tournament. It's not really constructive of being, a good base. I just think that Clark got it completely wrong, and I think he's entitled to do what he thinks right. He's got the country to tournaments and all that, which is fine, and he's entitled to do that. I happen to think he's done a fine job with Scotland considering, but he got it completely wrong, and I think he has to acknowledge that. And I think he has, in fairness, but when it comes to Wednesday, if he doesn't make the proper choices again, then I don't see Scotland doing anything. But aside of the other bits of the tournament, I thought England were kind of sticky last night, Chris. I thought that their performance was good for 20, 25 minutes, and then you're thinking, right, they're really going to put it together. But then the left side with Foden didn't look exactly comfortable. Trent Alexander in midfield went from kind of working to just not working. And they've got those 2 positions, I think, that are key. If they can fix them, Trippier at left back, I'm not sure it kind of fits either. So they've got question marks as well, but they still won. And I think aside of, Pickford had 1 save, but I think they were quite comfortable. Other games, they've kind of went how you would think they went. So it's good. I mean, I'm looking forward to actually being able to watch the 3 games today and seeing a bit of the football around it. But it's been good so far. It's been entertaining. The only game that's not really been entertaining was our own one, unfortunately, and we were the only ones that didn't really make a fight of it. Everybody else, even Albania against Italy, and that looked decent, didn't they? They looked like they were kind of a decent side. So a lot more football to be played and a lot more fun to be had.
Oh, we shall see what the day brings. Hopefully, try and get a chance to watch some of the action over the course of the day. But plenty on the agenda for today. As always, keep up to date with the latest transfer news. We will do our best to bring that to you. Stevie had an excellent column looking at the youth versus experience debate on the website over the course of the weekend. As I mentioned earlier on, my Q&A is there, and plenty more to come from both me and Stevie, because we are the only people still working for this organisation at present. So join us again on the show tomorrow morning, and thanks for your company. Stevie, thank you as always.
No, thank you, Chris, and thanks for everybody watching. Hopefully, next couple of days when we're on, we'll have some transfer news or confirmation anyway of a couple of deals. That would be nice.
We'll see you all tomorrow morning. Thank you.